So hi, it's Esley and JB, and we're continuing our Killer Nashville series with a bunch of interviews with writers. Talk about what it really takes to be a writer and their experiences, and give some interesting tips.
Today we're featuring Karen Dionne, who wrote the wildly successful The Marsh King's Daughter, which was made into a movie last year, and also The Wicked Sister, among other works.
And we're also going to feature Lois Winston, who is the author of the Anastasia Pollack Crafting Mysteries, and she also just won the Silver Falchion for Best Comedy.
Enjoy.
Hi, I'm Karen Dionne, and I write psychological suspense that's set in Michigan's Upper Peninsula wilderness.
Okay, so Karen, would you tell me what was the worst advice you ever got as a writer?
The worst advice, I really can't think of anything. You know, in the writing world, particularly in the thriller community, people are so generous, and they usually share their best advice, not their worst advice. But, okay, backing up, so when I wrote my first novel, I got a literary agent, but the novel didn't sell. And this wasn't actually advice, but my husband said he thought I was done. He thought I wouldn't write anymore because, well, I tried and failed. So that, I guess you could say, would be the worst advice. If somebody tells you to stop or if you can't write, don't listen to them.
So what was the greatest challenge that you faced as a writer?
Definitely for me, the greatest challenge was writing a follow-up book to my novel, The Marsh King's Daughter. That was my big breakout book. It published in 2017, and I took a 2-book deal with my U.S. publisher and many of the foreign publishers. So I had another book to write. The reception for The Marsh King's Daughter was so amazing that creatively it was very challenging to write another book that would be just as good. So yeah, that was definitely a hard time, but I made it, and I'm very proud of the book.
Okay, so what was the most surprising thing that ever happened to you or was said to you as a writer?
The most surprising thing that ever happened to me as a writer was the success of The Marsh King's Daughter. Without going into a lot of detail, when I got the idea for the book and it gelled and it finally came together, which was after just a few days from, initially getting the idea, I knew that those pieces would fit into a really good book. I knew the book could be something special. But I did not expect the success that The Marsh King's Daughter has seen. It's been translated in 28 languages. It was got a rave review in the New York Times. It won the Barry Award and the Crimson Scribe Award. And I could just go on and on. So that's definitely the most surprising thing that happened to me as a writer.
So what are you working on now, and how did you get the idea?
I'm working on a 3rd psychological suspense that's set in Michigan's Upper Peninsula wilderness, and I do start my books with characters, but this one I deliberately chose a setting, an aspect of the UP that I haven't used before. The Marsh King's Daughter takes place in the marsh or the swamp or the wetland, and the Wicked Sister uses the forest. Well, there's another aspect to the Upper Peninsula landscape that's massive and huge, and that's Lake Superior. So this book takes place in a small town on the shore of Lake Superior, but I will say the climactic scene takes place on a fishing boat in a storm on Lake Superior in October. And if readers are thinking the Edmund Fitzgerald, yes, that's what we're talking about. So I'm very excited. I hope to finish it soon.
And what would be your best advice to someone who wants to be a writer?
Oh, that starts easy. Best advice, do not quit. So it was roughly 20 years between the time when I started writing seriously to the time that The Marsh King's Daughter sold. And I had a couple of novels in mass market paperback that had a modest amount of success. And there were times when I thought, well, maybe this is as good as it's going to get. I should quit and do something more productive. So, and then there's the self-doubt too. Writers, we all experience it. It never goes away. So don't quit. That's one thing. And then the other thing is, if you are finding that, let's say you're frustrated because you're getting nowhere in your agent search, or you're published but not to the level of success that you want, don't be afraid to try something new. I changed from writing science-based thrillers to psychological suspense. And it isn't just that I had more success in the psychological suspense, which is true, but I also discovered that's what I'm really good at, And so just because we start writing in a particular niche doesn't mean that's where our writing strengths lie. So don't quit and don't be afraid to try something new.
That's great. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hi, my name is Lois Winston. I started out writing romance and started writing mysteries back in 2011, and I am firmly planted in the mystery genre right now. I have a series, the Anastasia Pollack Crafting Mysteries, which is now at 13 books and counting, plus 3 novellas. It's about a reluctant amateur sleuth, and it is a humorous series.
So Lois, what was the worst advice you ever got as a writer?
The worst advice I ever got as a writer was somebody who critiqued my work and told me that I couldn't move from scene to scene. I had to, if I had somebody arriving in a car and then going into a house, I had to have the person open the car door and step out of the car and walk to the door and unlock the door and then walk into the house. You couldn't just cut to somebody arriving at the house and the next scene they were in the house. And that to me was stupid.
Okay. What's the most surprising thing that ever happened or was ever said to you as a writer?
I have been to several talks at libraries where afterwards somebody came up to me, and it's always been a man, and he says, I have this wonderful idea for a book. If you write it for me, I'll split the royalties with you.
All right. What are you working on now?
I am now working on the 14th book in my series. It's about 2/3 of the way done at this point.
And what would be your best advice to someone who wants to be a writer?
Write. Just keep writing. But when you're writing your book, keep in mind that every scene in the book and every piece of dialogue in the book must do one of two things. It's either got to advance the plot, or it's got to tell the reader something that she needs to know about the point of view character at that point. Otherwise, it's filler and it doesn't belong in your book.
That's it. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Well, guys.